Welcome to the Under the Hat podcast,
the show where we talk about everything and anything that is top of mind in education.
The goal is to provide meaningful conversations to what is currently happening in our classrooms.
Stories, pains,
moments of success.
We want to hear it all.
Friends, welcome back to Under the Hat. We're here at episode 55. Yeah. So we're approaching 60. Not my age, not your age, obviously, but the age. Yeah, well, really, the age of the pod, though, in terms of episodes. So super excited to be here with you all. Sophie, how's your week? How's it going?
It's been a little bit of a crazy week because this week teachers in my area went back to school, and so for like those teacher pre-days, and so we've got some training for me in the local area, like I'm giving training, and then also like the open houses and the back to school meetings for my kids. So there was like the work, and momming is now picking back up.
Nice. So I feel like I've been away from the classroom way too long, because I did normally, like we do Riley's back to school. We did that, right? And for my own daughter. And then I looked at my calendar yesterday. I'm like, wait, I have to do a back to school next week, like at my teacher job. I'm like, what am I going to do? And so it's kind of getting back into, you know how like you had a cadence within a school year? And so I did see something really interesting, Sophie, is I saw on the Edu Protocol Facebook page, someone did Fast and Curious for back to school with the parents and gave the parents what their kids experience, right, in their class and kind of talk about it. I might do that. I might steal that. So whoever posted that up, I'm sorry, but that was too much inspiration. What did you used to do for back to school besides like give information, I guess?
There was usually like an open house night, and I would give out like a syllabus and just say hi, thanks, and just have conversations with the parents, start building that relationship. I didn't like have a designated time with them. It was just sort of like a rolling door thing. And I didn't really plan that too much because I didn't have like a dedicated time, like I said. But what I did plan was like that first activity with my students on that first day. So yeah, you got to go over the rules and all that boring stuff, but like the first activity that you actually do with them, did you do the same thing every year, or was it like?
I feel my years were always different. And what's interesting is going back to the CTE classroom versus the social studies. I'm finding myself like at the core of it, I'm doing the same things, but like how I do them is like crazy different. Plus, I feel like I've grown. Like, I feel like I've become a better teacher being in the Edtech space. I think there's truth to that. But yeah, super stoked.
Well, I'm excited to actually hear what our guest says to this question, because they are also a teacher. Today, we're thrilled to have Dr. Scott Azar from the great state of New York with us. And with 15 years in the classroom, so he's gone back to school for 15 years now. Dr. Azar is a high school science teacher and a New York State master teacher, a geology enthusiast, and a self-proclaimed chronic adventurer. That's my kind of adventurer. He's passionate about finding new and innovative ways to learn and teach, and his work positions him at the forefront of educational innovation. Dr. Azar recently completed. He recently became a doctor. And we had a conversation about that. That's when we met at ISTE. We had a conversation about how I'm going to be a future Dr. Sophie, and he just got his DR in front of his name. Super excited. But his is in doctorate in AI implementation in the classroom. On top of his groundbreaking research, he even has a TED Talk titled "Making Personal Change Means Making Change Personal." Get ready for the awesome and insightful conversation. Welcome to the show, Dr. Azar.
Thank you very much.
Why don't we start out with telling us a little bit about your educational journey?
Oh man, yeah. So honestly, it's been a long one. Because this is gonna be my odd 15th year of teaching. Because as I kind of mentioned behind, I'm gonna be transitioning into a new role as the director of it's actually okay, this one's gonna be a tough one. It's STEM. It's they call it STEM B, it's STEM, but then also business. So I'm trying to find like a casual way where it doesn't sound like I'm misspeaking, like STEM. Um, so I will be teaching until my old district can find a replacement for me, and then I'll be stepping into that role, which is super exciting. But so I've been teaching for 15 years, and when I used to work in the South Bronx, and that's why I actually decided to go on to that leadership journey. And I don't know, I just kept finding new things to keep going into. So I have 2 master's degrees, the one that you need to actually teach in New York State. And then I did my leadership as a degree instead of just the certificate. It was a few extra classes and I had to do plus 30 anyway. And I was like, cool. And then I ended up just doing the doctorate because it just seemed like the next best thing to do. And I don't know, my learning journey is way too long. This would be a very long podcast because I still haven't haven't stopped. So yeah, I'm definitely excited to keep growing in this new role and learning how to kind of shift from being like a teacher leader to an actual director leader and find my footing in that and learn a lot about math and probably the business and everything too. So yeah.
So this STEM thing, I'm kind of intrigued by so what was the motive, and maybe it was like the decisions that that are above, but what was the inspiration, intentionality with adding the B, like the business component of that? That seems really unique, but in a very cool way to me.
What I've learned is every district seems to have their own little twist around. It could just be around here because I know I feel like when I listen to podcasts and things for other states, a lot of states have like the coaching model where like New York City does, but you don't really find that on the island, on Long Island too much, or so I think one is the new district's pretty small. So I think they just try to consolidate things, which is kind of frequent here. Cause yeah. And to be honest, I think sometimes the lettering is just that. Like sometimes it's STEM, sometimes it's STEAM, but like you're not in charge of the art teachers, I don't think, for a lot of those. But I think this does fit nicely though, because through just finishing the interview process, to me, I really like it because if you think about anything that we buy or like interact with, whether it's even just like the walls in your room, right? It's the science that understands the properties and the components to make something up. It's the technology to maybe and engineering that manufacturers all of these things. The math, obviously, that's involved in engineering and designing everything. And then doesn't sell unless you have some good business behind it too. So I actually am really excited because the view and the vision is to kind of try to blend and really just not have siloed STEMB, but really have a cohesive STEM department. So I'm excited to try to tackle that because I think especially now we have tools to help us to reach those more interdisciplinary needs a lot better. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy just how fast things have advanced in the last few years, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And also like business is everywhere, right? Like there are certain subjects and disciplines that like you see it. So I really love like that cross-curricular approach to what y'all are doing out there.
And the skills, right? I know it seems to be the hot topic on a lot of things to keep bringing up the World Economic Forum and a lot of those skills, but a lot of them are business skills, right? They're the communicating, collaborating, just that hospitality, a lot of those, or customer service, that's what I meant. A lot of those skills really are geared towards that business world, But what I love about them is, so there are things there are whole centers to teach scientists how to communicate. And I know near me, SUNY Stony Brook has, from MASH, I think it's Alan Aldrich, I think was his name. I'm sorry if I just butchered that, but there's a center for communicating scientists that specifically teaches those same skills, so people could help to figure out how to get grants, how to explain their research to make it more reachable, because you're at such a high level, and then you're you have to communicate that to the regular person, which is also kind of, in a way, how I ended up getting hooked up with Texas A&M, because I worked there in the summer too. So it's important. So I think they'll all work really nicely together.
I can see the integration of them all. Science, technology, and math are already really super easy to like integrate into each other. Being a former science and math teacher, I was already sort of doing a lot of that stuff, and I was also technology teacher, yeah. And there's even like engineering standards inside of science,
Yep.
and so there's a lot of skills that cross over in all of them. Being now in the business world, instead of being in the classroom, I could definitely see where all of those can intersect, cross over. The skills that you would learn to do a lab with a group of people are very similar to the skills you're going to learn how to work collaboratively across teams in a business. It's interesting to think of it in that way, because it's something that we don't normally do. So sounds like a new fun adventure.
I mean, I think that's something that I'm super passionate about, which I don't know if it was on my top of mind things that I wrote, but are we actually teaching like that? That really always is my question. If we're sounding the alarm over and over and over again of like things we're hoping kids need and stuff, but we are seemingly all trying to do these things to do that. Like, are we really meeting those needs?
So Scott, like that's been so on my mind as I've returned back to the classroom. Like when I'm really pushing my students out of their comfort zone, when they have to like actually talk with each other, with other humans, and they have to problem solve, and they have to think critically about issues within public education, because I teach in an education pathway. It's so interesting to hear them be like, well, we haven't done this ever.
Yeah.
So
and you're at a high school level, and they have never thought
and I'm at a high school
in that way.
Right?
Same
and I
though.
think, but I think it's like, it's so easy for us to just be like, here's this worksheet, here's this slide deck, test, let's move on.
Especially
Right.
when that time crunch starts coming with exams. We got our Regents exams here, and in science now we're transitioning officially it's not officially this year, but for a lot of districts, officially this year for some of our version of NGSS, which is called NIST, the New York State Science Learning Standards. And so what they typically do is they bump the tests up earlier. So we don't get out until the end of June. So what might sound still late is actually really early. And I think this June was the first administration, and it was like June 9th and June 10th, right? But then school really ends like at the end of June. And so you're moving it up a couple of weeks. It gets really hectic. So it's easier to default to that model of like PowerPoint. I'm going to just like tell you a lot of things because you have this assessment that has to come up, and it stifles our ability to modernize.
There's that time crunch and also the work behind it. So like if you're doing more of like a project-based learning or group work and collaboration work, the grading is more custom and it's not something that can be automated, unlike a multiple choice test can. So then, yeah, there's already so much on teachers, and for them to be more innovative, usually, not all the time, means that there's going to be more like behind the scenes work to do it.
Luckily,
With
we have a
AI
lot of
though,
time-saving team. There it is.
with AI though, I think a lot of that stuff is getting a little bit easier, especially with like thinking outside the box. Teachers have now at their fingertips a thought partner that has like all these ideas already like in the brain. So I'm interested in learning more about what your research that you did for your doctorate about AI implementation in the classroom came up. So like I know, but maybe Steve doesn't know how specific a research problem has to be. So first, what was that?
So believe it or not, I kind of took an explore because this is still on the newer side, depending on how you want to look at that. We actually just kind of took an exploratory lens to it to really just try. So I ended up making something that was way too long, but I'm going to use it for.
They're always really long.
Well, so I looked at a bunch of different things. First, I only wanted to, for some of the control variables, I wanted to look just at New York State, just because it was easier, because it starts getting crazy to look everywhere and making sure you get a good representative sample. And so I knew I could get all of the information to contact schools much easier just in New York. I understand what it means to get licensed here, right? It would be tough to try to match all of that up. So I guess that's why we started with just New York. But I really wanted to focus on the implementation of K-12 educators in all. I actually made it anybody that was a part or full-time teacher, just to really get an understanding of as big of a scope as I can. It also included people that I feel like typically get left out, like speech pathologists, OTs, PTs, guidance count, anybody that works with a student in some capacity in a school is who I was targeting, private, public, all of it, because I really wanted the best picture we could. And I looked at basically the attitudes of teachers towards the integration of AI into their classroom practices, their usage, their competency. So that was really more like TPAC. I know a lot of people are knowledgeable of, and then what their behavioral intentions were moving forward, and then a specific thing just looking at their professional development needs. And it was interesting because 2022 is like the new birth of AI for our, right? I feel like that gets like the most attention is November 2022. But what's amazing is we're in 2025. And for the most part, the conversation seems stuck, right? And so I went to ISTE, as Sophie mentioned, and a majority of the conversations seem to still be around like, what is AI? What can it do? How can it help you? And that is a little confusing to me because, and maybe because I immersed myself into it, but think about all we teach in a year to a student. And this is something that we're stuck on that same conversation for several years. And so I really wanted to think about what is the status of this right now, so we can try to figure out how to move this conversation forward. Because it's just going to get stuck. And so that was really the focus, or the why behind why we researched out. And we, as obviously I got a lot of help from my committee trying to figure this out. They were unbelievable. So with that, I ended up using 4 frameworks. It was a long survey. It was 77 total questions, and I won't. Yeah, it was way too long. I mean, the problem was there was so much to gather, and also doing this for the first time. Like I would, if I'm doing this again, I would narrow it down, because, I had to make my own instrument. So I had to try to make sure all of my constructs were valid. So you needed multiple questions that kind of asked the same thing in slightly different ways to make sure they align. It was a lot.
And make sure that they were unbiased and not leading, and creating good questions. It takes thought.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So what I ended up boiling it down to for now is I ended up looking at all of those things through 2 different lenses to just get started. Was looking at STEM versus non-STEM teachers. And then looking at, we were exploring some of the data to just kind of get get a hold. And what stood out to us as being an interesting place to explore that isn't explored as much is career stage. So what is the difference between an early career, a mid-career, and a late career teacher with these types of technologies, just to kind of get a sense there. And so that's kind of the route we took initially, because you know, I would like to go deeper into the individual letters and, you know, see more core subject based, just out of curiosity too, like science and math versus just, you know, humanities, you know, history or social studies and English. But yeah, in the end, I actually am kind of curious what you think. So STEM and non-STEM teachers, from all of your expertise so far in talking to people, what do you expect to find as far as maybe the attitudes or the usage for STEM and non-STEM teachers?
Do you want to go first, Sophie? I have thoughts.
I find this really hard, because me being a STEM teacher and then knowing a lot of people who are STEM and non-STEM teachers, but my circle is like into it, like ready to go. But then I also have some friends who, I asked them, like, what do you think about AI? This is a 8th grade math teacher, and she was legitimately scared of it. And I was like, huh. But yeah, so off the top of my head, I would say that non-STEM teachers use it less.
Okay.
STEM teachers use it more. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, so I 100% agree. I think though, like my brain is going more to like the why. And this is just my own experiences talking with educators and training them and, you know, what have you. But like, I think that core subject teachers normally have blinders with respect, like laser focused on their content standards, to a fault where even some of them, depending on the subject, will even ignore literacy standards, right? So they be ignoring literacy standards. Like, how are they even like having more of a bigger picture of like implementing something like that? While STEM and STEAM educators, to me, they're thinking more about they're teaching to a standard for sure, but they're like seeing the bigger picture of how things are meshed together. How do we get there? Problem solution. Like there's like all these different things that I feel that get intertwined in what they're doing. So it's almost like almost naturally that they'll be more inclined to implement AI and what that looks like in the disciplines that they teach.
That's interesting. I didn't know if you were going to end up splitting that, because you're both, right, Steve? You're the histories and non-STEM, and Sophie's the STEM. So I was curious to see if that was like a shifted lens. So
We know Steve's an anomaly.
That's right. This is only obviously speaking from so in total we had 377 responses. And there was like 400 something, and then we had to narrow that down a little bit because people just like said, cool, this looks great, and then didn't do anything. And yeah, so anyway, getting rid of everybody, this is what was very, very interesting here. The research was all over the place. I found things that said both, depending on what country you were in and what year the study was done. But a lot of those reoccurring themes that you both mentioned kind of kept coming up, was that it's a technology, right? So isn't that inherently STEM, that we're less maybe afraid of integrating something new and cutting edge because that's really what's in there. And so in the study that I conducted, two things really ended up sticking out as being very interesting. So non-STEM teachers reported a little bit. It wasn't anything necessarily significant, but I had a question in there where you had to just try to tell me what types of AI-based platforms are you using. So I tried to keep it as generic as I could, so I didn't get into the minutia of like a specific thing and then they come and go like underwear, right? So I looked at like large language models or pre-existing software that now just embeds that technology. School targeted LLMs like Magic School and School AI. And then I did things like Grammarly, presentation creators, worksheet creators, so on and so on and so on. And then I do not use AI in my teaching. To just tangent real fast to go back to the math teacher comment, which was really funny and relatable. I also left spaces where people could just elaborate so I can try to provide some context to my data. And several people in all caps were like, keep teaching human, like just 5-alarm fire. You could read the anger, which was really interesting. And I wish I would have done the follow-up interviews because I would love to dig into that more just to really understand those. But without that further ado, to kind of get back on where I was going. So to answer, I do not use any AI in my teaching practices. Out of 160 STEM teachers that responded, 25.6% said they do not use any AI in their teaching practices. 22.1% of non-STEM teachers do not use. So believe it or not, my research ended up showing that, at least in New York State, K-12 educators, that actually more, and there's another little twist to this too, more non-STEM teachers are using AI by a small margin. But what's kind of cool was when I looked at what percentage of teachers were using each of those categories, STEM teachers were more broadly using those different types of tools, where the non-STEM teachers really just kind of like focused in a small area. So the percentages on almost everything as a whole were higher for the STEM teachers, but non-STEM teacher and yeah, it was just more broadly used. And then the thing that alarmed me out of that, and then I'll stop talking for a minute, was the research, which was a national study from the RAND Corporation in the same year. So my study was technically, even though I defended this year, the data that I collected was was December 31st, 2024. In the same year, the RAND Corporation only found 25% of teachers were using AI in 2024. Mine showed almost triple that. So that was also really interesting too. And I wonder if that's just because of the acceleration of it.
Yeah, I wonder if they did their study at the beginning of 2024. Did it say
There was it was a follow-up from a previous year's study. So the RAND did it, I guess, 2023. And then I think they redid it in 2024. There's so many dates and numbers and things, so I might be a little off.
Well, that's interesting. Also, if they're doing the whole, they did the whole US, right? And you just did the state of New York. So I wonder if that could be that, New York is doing more to encourage it, and then
if for some reason someone was able to get per state data at that scale, which would be crazy. I feel like the government would have to do that. That would be crazy work. Stop it. So Scott, kind of what you're just hearing you talk about the STEM and non-STEM, what I hear you saying is usage, right?
Types of platforms and usage.
Yeah. So and I know this probably wasn't the anchor of your study, and I'm frankly just talking out loud right now, but when just listening to it, I'm I almost want to know, just being curious, how are we defining using, right? And so when you do see core subject teachers use AI, from what I've experienced, they're really using it for productivity purposes. I need a quiz. I need a worksheet.
Yeah.
Map out my whole unit for me. Or relying perhaps too much on feedback to where then the kids don't get enough human feedback, right?
Yeah.
And so, but on the STEM side, how are they using it? So your numbers are what they are. but then like just my curious mind would be like,
Like,
well,
what
I'm
I
not
wanna
ready,
know
but I have
how.
that. I have it. I just
Oh
haven't.
my gosh.
Yeah.
like, yeah, how are they actually using
But
it?
I'm gonna pop the bubble though, because I haven't. So because it was so comprehensive and like this just I focused on little parts of it, and that ended up getting into some of the open-ended stuff. I ended up like tagging what people were using it for. And this is just observational only, really. This is not any hard, but a majority is exactly, I was like, time saving, lesson planning, idea generation. So all of the questions, this was a specific question just to see what types of things people were using. There were definitely a lot more questions that were focused on how you're actually using it. Outside of this and one other part, as far as STEM and non-STEM teachers, there was no significant difference in their attitudes, their implementation. I'm sorry, their intentional behaviors, their competencies. I mean, again, this is, it's self-reported, and obviously there's some, I wish I could go into all these people's classrooms and check all of this out. But across all of that, it did show more or less, which I thought was very interesting, that there really wasn't as much of a difference. Which could just be kind of, maybe, again, just thinking about where this could be coming from. Is it because the conversation is stagnant? So we've maybe all kind of caught up to roughly the same point here, because we don't really know where to go. We're just sort of like in it together as far as subject areas. But then there's something going on because different subjects are using different platforms. So, my speculation of this was that at a basic level, we can keep a lot of our professional development the same for both. But then maybe as we're getting more nuanced, then we're starting to see some of that differentiation too, perhaps.
So is it more, this is the top of my mind question. Like, is it more the teacher is using it only, or the students using it in the classroom? Did you ask that
So
question?
this was very specific. Yeah, I mean, mine geared towards specifically integrating it into their specific teaching practices. At least in New York, because we have the Ed Law 2D agreement, where for the most part, until very recently, there really haven't been too many platforms that students have access to. I don't know if legally is the right word, but obviously there's like the privacy concern. So what we know they're going home and using ChatGPT, but like, can I, as the teacher, say, here, students, use this chatbot? And there are more finally starting to come up with platforms now, like School AI and whatever.
Okay.
So I also think that the trouble with a study like mine, not to shoot myself in the foot, is that compared to other studies, that was what was really hard. You look at the dates on these and we're like, oh, look at this thing has been able to do since this study came out, right? So even as I was going through it, the advancements that were happening while I was doing it, and the ability of it to not be so hallucinogenic, and to just like be able to find links that actually link to things that work. Right? Like that was just a couple of years ago where you would be like, where are your sources? And it would just 404 not found.
Mm-hmm.
Now I get actual journal articles from peer-reviewed, right? It's come a long way.
Yeah, I just did a deep research thing the other day on what's the top of mind of small district leaders and those school leaders in those districts. And it actually gave like legit surveys and research and report. And like a year ago, that wouldn't have been that wouldn't have been a thing. So this is an interesting thing, because a part of doing research at the level that we're doing it, Scott, is that you're supposed to find a gap in the research. With AI, there's always going to be a gap because it's always growing, it's always changing.
Well, that was my problem of trying to make a niche question. Was I didn't. There was so much to be asked, and I was sat down with my chair, and we were just like, what? Where would you even? Also, I think this was part of my driving question too, to kind of just build on what you were saying, Sophie. It was like, the problem is when these things are in such small tiny sections of the research universe, right? It seems very abstract, and I really wanted to do something that would be applicable, right? So that's where I really, there are so many studies that just looked at the attitudes or just looked at the usage, but don't they impact each other? If you have a certain attitude about something, you may or may not use it differently. And that was also kind of interesting. Despite a lot of how fearful or excited people are, generally speaking, people are okay with using it in their classroom, whether they have reservations on that or not, which I thought was fascinating, because going back to our earlier conversation about, are we really communicating the skills or helping to have students use the skills that they really need? You get a lot of resistance when you try to think in project-based learning, UDL, thinking about like really those executive function skills. And I get it, right? This is gonna be my 15th year of teaching. It's like, at what point can I possibly keep loading it on to what I have to do every day? And I 100% understand and respect that. But it was interesting that this all of a sudden was like, who cares? Just like, I'll use it regardless of how I feel.
Regardless of how I feel, I'm going to use it anyways.
Or I'd be willing to use it with students and in classrooms.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Mm.
But then we did see some stuff with career stages, which was kind of cool. Oh, well, actually, this goes to both of them, so this will be an easy transition. I was also curious how many people actually have PD available to them. What you would think everything is AI PD, right? Like, I mean, in ISTE, I would say it was everywhere. It was everything. It was almost, I would say, like, I would really love a percentage that had something in AI in it. My gut feels like it's like a 90%er, because I feel like
we
you
could probably push the
from
schedule into Gemini and it would tell us.
It probably. So, and that's been a trend for a while, right? It's everywhere. But I was surprised to find that out of, again, the people who responded, only 50, we'll call it 55% of people actually have it available to them. Now, that actually did match with some of the other statistics in other research. I mean, the amount of PD was pretty low. And then the people who are actually going to it, only about, and this is the average, is only 45.4% are actually going to receive this training. So there's a 9.5% gap there. And then non-STEM teachers, there was a 12% gap between, is it available to you and are you actually getting it? And there was a 6% difference between STEM and non-STEM, which might be like we were saying, it's like maybe it has something to do with its infusion into kind of the core of how we learned.
So when we think about
Steve,
the
you're
people
really
who
processing,
are going,
Steve. I could see
Steve's
the
processing.
wheels. Yeah,
Yeah.
I could see the wheels.
It's interesting to think about the people who are going to ISTE, who are going to FETC, who are going to the conferences, are there to learn and they want to know other people's ideas. But like me, I wanted to go to those conferences because I wanted to learn and I was already playing and I was already trying to figure it out. So it's interesting to think like, are the ones that don't have PD just teaching themselves, or the ones that like, are the STEM teachers just teaching themselves and figuring out and clicking and doing because that's what we do? We're experimenters. We go and click and figure out what's going on. And they don't go to training because they think they already know it.
Well, it's
Or
either they think they already know it or they're not going to bother with it. Right.
yeah.
And so that's kind of where, while I love ISTE, right? I love zoom in, zoom out. I love FETC, right? Even for me in California, more local things like Q are those opportunities actually accessible and equitable. So like, it's great that ISTE is like doing the work that they're doing to provide AI PD for those that attend, and even with their virtual option, not the same, right? And so how do we bring that ISTE energy to the school districts? And how do we make it, how do we incentivize a director, right? Whether it's curriculum and instruction or educational technology, innovation, whatever it is, like for them to be like, how do we bring that magic into their doors? And so to me, I think that's like an underlining issue of like all professional development, whether it's AI, UDL, project based. Like that's working at Cami. That was always like a concern of mine. Is like, yeah, we're out here trying to help a lot of people, but we're only us. Like it's only Sophie and it's only Steve for a particular territory. And how do we make it accessible? And it's a huge challenge because there's a lot of people to train.
And speaking of the equitable and accessible, depending on the size of the district,
Mm.
the amount of money that they're getting is completely different. And that means theoretically the quality of tools that they have are completely different. When that deep dive research I did with Gemini, cybersecurity was one of the top of mind things that every single small district is looking into. And being part of a small district myself, over here in West Virginia, where most of the districts are that size, it's cheaper to get a simple tool that can just blanket block stuff than it is to get a tool that allows more customization. And it's easier to manage to just blanket block stuff because you don't have the manpower to keep up with the customization that you need. So
I need
it
the
is
money to
an
send
interest.
people on PD.
Yeah.
Right? Like my school district was kind enough to pay my way for ISTE. But I mean that is not a cheap bill. And so I'm I guess I could still technically say this for another 30 days. I am a tech mentor in my school district, but I am not the only one. There are 18 of us. And so 18 people have the opportunity to go to ISTE every year and some others. Granted, not
no matter where it is, right?
I've gone the last since they I think New Orleans, so it's like 3 or 4 years ago now. And there's usually a handful of us. Yeah, I went to the Philly one in 2019, but I got a scholarship for ISTE because I was working in New York City still at the time. But that's not cheap. It's like probably I think it's $500 to $700 to do that. Then you have hotels and I stayed in a hostel in Philadelphia the first time because it was cheap, and that's what I could afford. I took the train, and now I'm very fortunate, but most schools are not trying to do that.
Right.
Well,
So
and
you're
in
right.
my
Like, how does that
district,
become equitable?
the only ISTE we're allowed to go to, if the district's going to pay for it, will be the Philly one because it's the closest one. And the year that I was going to be able to go, I was pregnant, so I couldn't go because I was going to have a kid that summer. And they all carpooled, they room shared. Like it's literally the smaller districts that probably need the most PD and the most education on the technology that's out there and how to get more innovative, aren't able to get to it.
Yeah.
Unable to gain access to it. Look at Steve bringing in that. I could get on a soapbox on this.
But like, okay, so like with the PD being what it is, right? Like, I think the other thing too is like the AI, and this can be a giant rabbit hole, but like the AI tool or usage or how it's being implemented, how it's being used, like I want that stacked up against student achievement data, right? And like I think, and maybe Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm off base or what have you. Like, I feel like it's too early with AI being around in this way to have good indicators and good data to measure like what it's doing with student achievement. Because I
It
get
doesn't
it.
stop people from doing the data and saying that it's there though, because our friend Stephanie was just chatting to me and she said she was talking about this new research that's out there that says chatbots really do improve student outcomes. And I'm like, tell me more about this research. When was it? Who
Sure.
did it? What was the subset? Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
tell me more.
But so can any, right? In theory, what tool? How many? We hear that with every tool, but in, right, and like you're saying, Sophie. Sorry, it's there are so many things out there that improve whatever, but it's effective versus ineffective use. You can take any tool if you use it effectively enough, you're going to get the job done.
And so, Scott, like, I love that you said that, because this is what was as you're saying it, like, it was on my mind. I'm like, I almost don't care about the tool, like, whatever the tool is. That, like, to me, that's not
How are
the
you
focal point of this.
using it?
It's the strategy. What are the AI strategies that you're using, and is it moving the needle? Right? Like, I think that's the more deeper, productive conversation to have.
Yeah. And that's an ed tech problem though, right?
Yep.
Think about the people that FOMO mentality. It's and this is no shade to any platforms or whatever. So if I throw this out, these are just names that come up to my brain. But like, is it? Oh God, what are they called now? Not quizzes, Wayground.
Wayground.
Yeah, it's like there's Wayground, then there's Gimkit, then there's Kahoot, and then there's all of these platforms that sort of go at this, and everyone's like, oh nope, got to use this now, and then like there's the fatigue in trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? And especially with AI stuff. I mean, my mom has been teaching teachers for, I won't say how many years. It's a very long time. It is past the golden age. I'll give her that because she'll kill me if I say it out loud. And she is a Matt Miller fangirl. And Matt Miller, by the way, just not a plug on him too. Every year I see him at ISTE, he takes a picture with me to send to my mom. He sent her a video thanking her for all her stuff. Like, most amazing person. So like, she just keeps clipping stuff that she finds from all of his blogs and everything he posts. So she sent me something about the most recent AI platforms to check out. And it's like, I keep up with this 24/7 and I didn't know about all these, like, but you can't, right? Because you would go crazy. It's literally actually, and we were talking about that episode with Fonz that you had, and I think he hit the nail on the head. You have to, don't worry about the tool. It's like, what are you trying to accomplish with the tool? There are amazing AI-based things out there. Not everyone's going to be the one that is going to be best for whatever you're trying to do with your kids.
It's got to be aligned to the standard. It's got to have purpose behind it and be intentional. And what's the word I'm looking for? It's to not sound self-promoting. It's got to level up the instruction.
Stop it, Sophie. Stop it. This is not a sales pitch. I'm just kidding. It's fine.
My handle is Level Up Sophie. You come and level up with Sophie. Anyways, so you got to level up the instruction in some way. It's got to actually be purposeful and intentional technology integration, and it can't just be a babysitter. It can't just be just because sometimes I will use Gemini and Google search, because Gemini is built into it now, to just because I can ask it to make something for me. But in the classroom, I'm seeing things that are sort of like the purpose is to give the teacher 10 minutes of quiet. And that's with any technology, not just AI, any technology, just to give the teacher 10 minutes of quiet. And I'm like, in the secondary world, you've got a very limited time, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and you're doing 10 minutes of them on.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have time
especially
for that.
if it doesn't have a reason.
Right.
Well, and it's also like, what's the user experience? Like, all of what Sophie said has always been on my mind. But when I went to go work at Cami, I had this realization. I'm like, no, how long does it take for a kid to pull up an assignment? How long does it take for a kid to log in? What's the grade and age, class size, like, culturally, like, how are, like, what's the technology the technology on, like, on a literacy standpoint? Like, to me, like, there's all these different things. Like, I'm like, dude, if it takes you longer than 3 minutes to get kids on a thing,
it's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
I don't mean to push back kind of jokingly on that, but if you've ever used a Chromebook, nothing takes under 3 minutes to get to.
The other
That's
thing, the Chromebooks are
that is
cheaper.
true. So that's a whole different.
That's a whole different thing. That's another level of equity too, because Chromebooks are cheaper.
Yes, but
Um,
they're
Yeah.
they could be better.
They
Well,
could be better.
So Scott, like when I first started teaching, my district had Windows devices for the students. And then over the course of time, they moved to Chromebook. And I was like, oh no, please don't do that. Because I knew what that meant. I knew what
Yep.
that meant. Like everything's gonna be slower. So
Well,
yeah,
how many corners of the computers did kids have to eat before they realized this is too expensive to replace? You know, like it's sad what the kids do to these things. I mean, I understand why schools buy Chromebooks. I see some of these things and they're it's sad that they get them and they
purposely
just
drop them down the stairwell. We've had
Yeah.
a Chromebook shot. We've had a Chromebook dropped off a bridge.
I literally watched a kid chew on the corner in my class last year. I'm not back to teaching
And that's
yet.
funny that
Don't
you
rush
guys
me.
say that, because my district started out with like Windows devices and the kids complained that it loaded too slowly, and that's why we moved to Chromebooks.
Hmm.
So it's interesting that you started with Windows and it was faster. Maybe it was also the quality of the device.
So, and this has just been me. So Sophie, to bring it way back to the top when we first started talking, like how I've changed since I've like returned. And the biggest change is like kids don't do anything outside of my room. Like the notes that they take, they keep them in the room so they're not losing them, right? I would almost prefer, and there's a reason why I'm saying this, I promise, that I would almost prefer that the Chromebooks, it's almost like do it old school, like have a cow. Y'all remember the cows, like Chromebook on wheels? I would almost feel like the devices stay in the room or stay in the building in some way. And be like, dude, no homework, but make sure you're leveraging the time that you do have. And Sophie, just because you know this about me, that's even including in class flip classroom instead of out. Like I don't want them. It's almost like I want to make sure that they get the best experience anytime that they engage with my content. And that includes being in the room with me. I know that's probably unpopular for some folks, maybe. But you're right. They don't take care of the devices.
They don't take care of the devices, and there's research out there, articles and surveys and interviews out there where districts are switching back to you don't take the devices home. They stay in the building. Whether it is you keep the same device all day long and it's in your home room, like your base room, or if you have a different device in each classroom, they're not letting the devices go home because they are getting broken too much. It's getting too expensive to replace them.
Well, I think though this circles back to focusing on those executive function skills and a lot of those core skills that maybe this is my hot take. I feel like there is always the emphasis on a lot of the higher level thinking and a lot of these things that to reach that point, I think they like erased the foundational part of it. And so it's like just a bunch of like sticks at the bottom of the house with like a top floor done, but the bottom is like kind of shaky. And so, which is where I do see kind of like to bring it back as well, what I hope will happen when we become AI ready, right? Like how can we use that to create more interdisciplinary things that also can incorporate those skills that maybe you don't do it because you're not really sure how. And like now it's a sounding board to say like, how can I do X, Y, and Z to make this group project where like kids can think, pair, share? Okay, cool. Make me a weekly tracker so kids can learn what did I do today? Rate yourself. What do I have to, and just like planning things out, which not in the few episodes that I actually have on my little podcast, I talked to another New York State master teacher, and that's what they do. And I thought it was amazing what they're doing to have just to integrate executive function skills like that quickly, but at least it's getting that conversation going and it's being practiced, because I think what it sounds like a lot of people are hearing are the kids are coming in more and more with the needs that we are like, they can't do X, Y, and Z. But then like, why aren't we doing anything about it? Because like we get what we get. That's a poem that I learned I had to read once upon a time. Don't remember what class. Thank you to the professor if you ever end up listening to this. But like you get what you get, right? We don't get to choose who's in our room. The only thing we get to do is figure out what we can do to help fix it. And so like resist all you want, but it unfortunately, if we really want to make it better, they spend so much time with teachers, right? Like we do have to find ways where it's not overbearing. And so that's where I think AI will help reduce a lot of things in time, especially in the beginning with like just freeing up time, thinking about things faster, coming up with assessments faster, and just like speeding your process along so you can really now use your brain to just focus now on what needs to be done. And then hopefully once that becomes more second nature, I hope that conversation begins to get pushed to saying, okay, wow, I could really spend a lot more time bringing in new things now because I've really learned how to leverage this tool to create innovative experiences that are both meaningful and real world to students, engaging, right? And then it also fits a lot of in New York. We're moving to a portrait of a graduate model, which I know other states we're not unique in that. But that's really what it is. It's like, okay, what are you leaving with that's going to mirror the skills you're going to really need to go on and be successful?
I like your image of the second floor is built, but you still have the sticks. It reminds me of the house in Monster House. Like they have the bedroom and everything built upstairs, but you could see through the basement. And anyways, I digress that. But it's not just like social skills and communication skills that are that way. It's legit. There's a foundation in math skills. There's that foundation in science skills that when they get to the next grade level, that we're still feeling like we have to go back and reteach. And it really is. It's one of those things. When I was a coach, when I was a teacher, I was like, I teach the kids that come to me the best way that is for them. And when I was a coach, that was a battle that I had to fight with a lot of ready to retire teachers, where it was like, they should already know how to do this. And I'm like, yeah, well, they don't. And what are you going to do about it?
Not surprising in my career stage based one, the amount of late career teachers who do not go to PD was extremely high. Well, and even just like learning how to be digitally organized. I mean, you're both in the classroom, and maybe you would see this through your lens at Cami too. How many things in a kid's Google Drive just say untitled document?
Or your mom's Google Drive.
Yes. We've seen that.
Yes. She was getting ready to change devices because she went from a tax position, a TISC position, to a Title I position. And so because of funding, she had to get a completely different device. And she's like, I need to get these things off of my computer and put them on and she holds up a flash drive. And I'm like, no.
I feel so bad for laughing right now.
She'll laugh with you. I'm like, Mom, you're going to put it on your OneDrive because the state of West Virginia, everybody has a Microsoft account. You're going to put it on your OneDrive. And she goes, well, I have all these folders. I have all these files I need to put in there. And I'm like, okay, so we're just going to upload it to your OneDrive. Okay, that's cool. And I said, have you sorted through your files into folders to like what you're going to do? And she goes, well, they're just here in my recents. And I'm like, did you organize them in folders?
Wait, you met my mother? Because that's exactly what I had to help my mother do to a T.
This just happened like this week because was the first week back to school. And it's the kids are doing that and our mothers are doing that. And then there's us generation, hopefully, that have actual folders and things organized. But then again, you're talking about the executive functioning thing with people with ADHD. We struggle to like follow through with the task because we're already on to the next thing. So my Google Drive at work is a bit of a mess because I don't have the time to put it where it needs to go. I just need to keep going. And then my doctoral stuff, I have on my personal device, I have a folder that says college, and it was broken up by course. But as I've continued working and being a mom and being a doctoral student, files are just in there all willy-nilly. They're not.
That's funny.
named
I
for the
am the
course.
opposite. I am very well organized digitally, but
I used to be.
but mine just manifests physically. Could be like I tell kids is just don't hand me papers. Either scan it into Google Classroom on the app. It's just like it's just one. It just helps me with because I know myself, right? So that's funny.
That's
felt
exactly what I told my kids when I was teaching, because we weren't one-to-one in any of the districts that I was teaching at. And so I did have to actually collect papers to grade and tests and stuff like that.
Ew.
But I always told my kids, no, do not hand it to me. I will lose it. Put it in the mailbox. And they would just come up to I'm like, no, do not hand it to me.
Yeah.
It will be lost.
But when I was in the classroom and when I was a tech coach, my digital world was so organized. It's when I left that I got all disorganized. My classroom was immaculate. Everything had its place and everything was supposed to exactly where it was. My office was pristine. My digital world was amazing. I come home to work from home. Everything went out the window.
It's true. I've seen footage.
Yeah.
All right. So look, Scott, this has been super insightful. Like,
I love it.
I feel like having like the research component with this chat with AI, I think we haven't really had that on the show. Like we've had really good ideas and authors and they all bring that value. Like, but I really love how you're like laser focused on what AI potentially is or what it could bring to our classrooms. But we are coming up towards the end here. And Scott, I know that you have like a notepad. You showed up prepared, man. So we'll be looking at right now this big question that we ask on the show is, what is under the hat? What's top of mind for you in education?
So I think one of them we really kind of touched on, but for me, now going into a director's position and thinking about teachers' resistance to professional development. I always thought it's interesting that in education, you have to mandate learning hours, which I don't know. It is what it is, right? But we're also very busy, so I get that. Anyway, how can we create PD that is better for teachers to keep wanting to come back, making it accessible, equitable, and most importantly, making sure that we are finding ways where it's not wasting anybody's time. Any professional development I do, I always try to figure out who am I sitting in front of, because I hate wasting my time. And I think it turns people off to even bothering in the first place because they've been burned too many times. And so as technology evolves, also, how do we keep that PD something where, like we said, it stays focused on the outcome and not the tool itself? I know it's a really long first question, but it really is just like, how can we make the experience for teachers better so they want to keep learning? The second one too is just, how do we work with a lot of these technologies, to especially a lot of emerging ones, because I'm also a big AR, VR kind of guy. When you were talking about what you do for back to school night, I have a very fast, funny story. My first year in my current district, current old district, for back to school night, I was trying to figure it out. And so I loved, and if anybody from Google Expeditions ever hears this, you just ripped the heart out of so many people, because I loved Google Expeditions. That was my favorite app ever. And
I agree.
like,
Hands
it
down.
was Oh my God, I did an amazing observation. I promise I won't go into the story with like a person from Pompeii that was mummified. And I actually found a video on the same person. So I had him an AR version of him on my front desk, and I walked around him, and kids had to first try to figure out what questions they would ask, right? To like uncover what happened to this person. They had no idea what it was, why he was there. Besides the fact that it's like in the middle of the room, right? But for my first in this district, parent teacher, what I did was I took Google Expeditions on my iPad and I propped it up by where parents had to sign in, and I made a little walking dinosaur. And so it was where when they walked up, when they went to go sign in, they would see themselves in the board and they would see a dinosaur walk by them. And that was my favorite, because it's like parents would get scared. They would see this little dinosaur walking around by their hand. They'd freak out and jump back. And it was so much fun. But you know what? It really opened up a cool conversation with parents to try to get to know them with the ridiculous amount of time they give us to actually like communicate a whole thing for us. Things like
10 minutes.
It's like 10 minutes or less. So yeah, like how do we bring those emerging technologies in? And then how also something that's in top of mind for me is a pet peeve of mine is I feel like educators work in a vacuum. I feel like we all work in these little silos. And so how could we collectively work together to figure out how to enhance the skills that we do see lagging in our classrooms, but specifically when trying to do that at the same time as being asked for a billion things, right? So one of the things I'm really excited for that I hope to share with my team, and I shared it with my principal, and he's like, you have to show all the administrators this. And this is such a simple thing. Well, it's simple an idea. I know that AI can code, but I was at an ISTE conference session, and I don't 100% remember what she said, but I just remember as soon as I heard the idea, I was like, how did I not see this? Using AI to create code that you can use for your Google Sheets, like how Excel used to have macros that you would do it and would basically program it to do something specific. There are so many cool things that I have now played with where I have used ChatGPT or whatever to create the code for the back end of Google Sheets. So like things from being able to manage. When I work for Texas A&M, if any science teachers are out there too, it's a wonderful program called G Camp for Teachers. And I had to figure out when people were coming in, were they coming by plane or by bus or whatever it was, where they were coming times. And I had a Google form that was going, and I had it pull from that and put it into a spreadsheet in the columns I wanted it. It like search. So it does all the function writing for you. It does everything. I had to do PD certificates where once I checked off their work, I just wrote yes, and it would schedule to send. So it would pull the files out of my Google Drive, send it through my Gmail, CC me. It was customized with their name on it that I use Canva for. So it's like the amount of stuff that we can do to streamline our workload to be able to reduce it to get to this point is so exciting for me. So those are really those things that are on the top of mind, is like, how do we make really great PD to make sure teachers are excited about the things that they can do to better enhance their teaching and to like re-spark that maybe if they've lost it. And then how do we also create that time and work collectively to really hit the needs? So we know, I think it was one or two of you get Katie Novak also said like, same idea. It's like how there's something missing there. And like, how do we get at that so we can really make sure the kids that are leaving our school system are really succeeding when they leave?
Yeah. We're preparing them for a world that we cannot even imagine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, that was a really long-winded thing, but I'm really passionate about it.
Yeah. No, it's good. A lot of what you're hitting on though is like teachers have to work insanely hard, whether it's being super passionate or money or time and effort. So a lot of work that teachers have to do to go find those things. But the problem is like those things don't find teachers. And so going again, not to be like a dead horse, but like it's one of those accessibility, like equitable things. But if we can get more teachers in front of those things, those items, those innovations, like,
And some of those amazing innovations are literally right down the hallway in your building, and
Yeah.
they're
sometimes,
not even sharing with each other.
yeah, yeah,
But that's
so
culture.
that's culture. Yeah, no, that's a different thing, but that's 100% true as well. It's like,
Mm.
I just want to be in my classroom, be left alone. I don't want an admin in here. I don't want to talk with anyone. I want my kids quiet. Yeah, I feel that. Scott, this has been fun, man. Really appreciate it. Like really appreciate you being on the show and sharing all of your wisdom. Also, thank you for tuning into the show. Really appreciate that and showing that love and support as well.
I enjoy both of the things you just brought up.
Yeah.
Being here and listening.
Yeah. Awesome. Love it. All right, friends. We went a little long, but I think it was worth it. So if you are hanging on to the very end, I hope you learned just as much as we did. And thank you all for
And
listening
before
and tuning
Steve
in.
says, the last line and all that stuff, thank you, Michelle, for introducing me to Scott at ISD. I appreciate it.
Michelle who? Michelle Manning?
Manning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's my girl.
Michelle's awesome.
She's the best.
She's been on the show too. I don't know if
Oh,
you've
has
caught that
she? I haven't
episode.
gotten to that one yet. I've been working in weird orders. I just kind of scroll till I like the because kind of like PD, you got to find the caption that gets you off the bat, right? Yeah. We work not that far from each other, and we went to some PDs that were together, and then we just became really friendly. Yeah. So she introduced me to Sophie, which was really cool. Had a good time with the Cami crew.
Yeah,
It was a fun time.
Oh yeah, the Cami crew at ISTE is normally a lot of fun. Yeah, very cool, awesome. All right, friends. Well, y'all have a good day. Take care, and like always, keep your hats on, but your minds open. Have a good day. Bye bye.